It's looking like Jalen Duren will make the All-NBA team, but in this messed up new CBA, could that actually be a bad thing for the Detroit Pistons? We'll break it down in today's episode, Locked On Pistons Podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Khahil, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $200 or $250, in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to get started today. Later on, we have transactional news for the Detroit Pistons, something you probably don't usually see in early April, right before the playoffs start, but we did see the Pistons make some transactions today. We'll talk about why they made those transactions. Also, I want to talk about, is there anything to take from the final week of the season? Is there anything the Pistons could get out of the final week of the season before the NBA playoffs start? But first, I want to start with talking about Jalen Duren, his All-NBA candidacy, and the impact that could have on the Detroit Pistons financially. So let's go ahead and talk about why Jalen Duren, we have to address why Jalen Duren looks like he's going to be a lock for All-NBA team. One, because he's played phenomenal. He has been absolutely fantastic, especially since Cade went down. I was just listening to the Zach Lowe podcast earlier today while I was working out. And by the way, he did apologize basically for not having Ausar in his all-defensive team a few weeks ago. He actually moved him all the way up to his first team and said that if Wemby were to not make the 65-game rule, I believe he said he would have him second behind Chet for Defensive Player of the Year if Wemby were to not hit the 65-game rule. But anyways, I thought that was a good tidbit. I know we've all been trolling Zach for not having Ausar on it a few weeks ago. But he talked about Jalen Duren, and he said he felt like Jalen Duren is an absolute lock at this point. And we had been talking about that a few times over the last few episodes with how Jalen Duren has played since Cade Cunningham went down. It felt like an automatic lock at this point. Just to give you guys the numbers of what Duren has been able to do, we've talked about it a lot, but in case you've forgotten, I'll go ahead and give you guys a heads up. Over these 11 games without Cade, 23 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists on, this is the craziest part, on 74 true shooting. He saw his volume go up, the usage go up, the attention from defenses go up, and he somehow got more efficient, scored more points, and led the Pistons to a 9-2 record. He was absolutely phenomenal during this stretch. Got to the free throw line 8.5 times. I mean, that's just insane. Getting there that many times a game, that's something the elite scorers do. He shot 83% when he got there. So these 11 games, he has just been straight up phenomenal. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And this stretch is what I think is going to get him into an All-NBA team. Now, if you even go back to since the All-Star break, he's been crazy. He's been 23 points on 10 rebounds, 2.3 assists, and 71 true shooting. But maintaining that and getting better in some regards, getting more efficient when Cade went down was the winning argument for him. And the Pistons being able to maintain and win the first seed with Cade going down. All of that is the main argument for Duren. So along with that, though, there are a lot of players who seem like they're not going to make it. Cade is obviously one of them. Looks like Luka probably will miss it. We have a few other guys, obviously, that we don't know if they're going to hit the 65-game rule or not. So along with Duren really cementing his case with his play on the court, all these other players that are going to miss it because of the 65-game rule, it feels like it's automatic that Duren will be on the All-NBA team. Maybe if those guys hit 65 games, he still deserved it. But even if that was the case, with them being out, this all but just cements it for me. So the reason why that's a big deal for the Detroit Pistons, before Jalen Duren makes an All-NBA team, let's just say for some reason he doesn't make the All-NBA team, right? Let's say he doesn't end up making it. The Pistons could max for him without All-NBA would be around 5 years and $239 million. That would be around $41.5 million average salary to start off. Basically, that's 25% of the salary cap, right? That's how much he would be. That's the max the Pistons could offer him without All-NBA. If he does make All-NBA, he goes from 25% to 30% of the cap. And now you're talking about a max salary of basically $50 million. It's $49.5. It starts off in his first year on the extension at $50 million. It would be around 5 years, $287 million. I mean, that is an incredibly incredibly hefty contract. Even from me, who constantly is talking about the cap is going up, you got to reevaluate how you look at contracts. A $15 million contract 10 years ago is now like a $25, $27 million contract. A $20 million contract 10 years ago, probably like a $30, $32 million contract. Like things have changed so much that people need to reevaluate what a big contract and what a bad contract is, basically. With that said, though, $50 million is a lot if he makes All-NBA. I think he's going to. That's the max they can offer him. Now, I don't know if the Pistons would actually offer him the max. And I don't know if Jalen Duren and his camp would demand the full $50 million. Maybe they would. And maybe they do have to pay him the $50 million. But there's a few other examples you have throughout the league where guys sign for just under the max contract average salary, and both sides are happy. They still get the length. They still get a lot of money, obviously. But they sign just a little bit under the max. Before I get to my main point here, I would say that I would feel really comfortable if he signed for under 45. If you could give him at like 42.5, I would feel pretty comfortable at that if he makes All-NBA. Because if he makes All-NBA, he's going to want more than the 41.5 that he would have got before making All-NBA. I think you can assume that pretty comfortably. At least I am. So I would really be happy if you could give him for like 43, save some millions. But if he does demand the $50 million, and that's all he wants, the Pistons are going to have to give him that. Now, if they do have to give him that much money, should you be concerned about that crippling the Detroit Pistons salary cap? Well, there's two ways you can look at this. One is it could be worrisome because you are then committing 30% of the cap to Cade, 30% of the cap to Duren, that's 60%, and Ausar is going to get extended this offseason. Let's just say he gets, I don't know, what would $27 million be a year, first year? Like, I think he's going to get probably somewhere between 27 to 32 is what I believe when I've heard. Let's say he gets 20. I don't know how much of the cap that would be. I think that's around maybe 20% or something. I'm not 100% sure. You guys would have to fact check me on that one. But let's say you have that much money tied into those three guys. You will have around like 20 to 25% left just to build out the rest of your team. And that's when we get into the conversation we had a few podcasts ago when we talk about winning the margins. That's why it's so important to get these second-round picks, to get these first-round picks, and to hit on these late-round picks, and to get some of these minimum contract players and having them be contributing players, getting these two-way contract guys and having them be contributing players. That's why it's so important, because if you're going to spend so much money on three guys, you're not going to have as much to spend on everyone else. So that's where the margins matter so much. So that's one way you can look at it. It is a lot of money that they'll probably be giving to three players. And that does, whether they're great or not, it makes it harder to build out the rest of the team. Whether it's a good problem to have or not, we're removing that. I think it's obviously a good problem what the Pistons have. But whether you have great players or not, just simply having to commit that much money to three people obviously makes it hard for anybody to have to then build out the rest of the roster consistently. So I understand the concerns about that. And I think the rule the NBA has done where I feel like they should change it to where the extra money doesn't actually impact the team. They can earn that much money, but the team shouldn't be penalized for it. I understand the other side of it, though, that it forces parity. It forces guys that have to make decisions. It spreads out the talent more. I get that. So I understand both sides. The second point, though, which is where I'm at, and the good reason to do it is, is it a lot of money? Yes. But what we need to realize, and now we have a 2-year sample size of this. I think what people who are questioning this have to realize is we have a 2-year sample that tells us, and really this year I would use, because last year you can argue some different. This year we have a sample that tells us as long as the Detroit Pistons have Cade Cunningham, Ausar Thompson, and Jalen Duren on the floor, they will be contenders. That's what the sample tells us. So while it's hard to build, to consistently build a roster around three guys making that much money, and while it is harder, when you have three players like that, you're good with it. Because the data tells you as long as you have those three guys and you surround them with just competence, you will be contenders. This year, in 778 minutes on the floor, Cade, Ausar, and Duren are a plus 11.5. They dominate their minutes when they play. Last year, the starting lineup dominated. This year, this trio has dominated in their minutes. As long as they are on the floor, the Pistons have been contenders. Any single one of them. Any one of them, they've been contenders. You go and look at their single. Just look at their alone on-off. The Pistons are plus 9.4 in the minutes Cade's on the floor. Let's just go look at Duren. They're plus 11.6 with Duren on the floor. You go look at Ausar, they're plus 12.4 with him on the floor. Look at the duo of Jalen Duren and Ausar Thompson. When those two guys share the floor, they are plus 13.1 in the 1,100 minutes they've played together. As long as you have those guys together, the data tells us, and the fact that they're a 1 seed, and you go back to the starting lineup last year, the data tells us those guys will win you basketball games. This is a legit core. And I think for some fans who maybe are hesitant to pay Duren, I get it. It is a lot of money. I'm not sugarcoating that it isn't a lot. It is going to be a lot of money that you have to commit to Cade, Duren, and Ausar. But I think we need to let go of the past. Some of the fans, I'm speaking to some, need to let go of the past, need to let go of what it looked like 2 years ago, and operate in the current situation we have over the last 2 years that tell us as long as you play Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, and Ausar Thompson on your basketball team, you are going to be a contender in the Eastern Conference. We have 2 years of it telling us this. And the Pistons, not like they have around Cade, Ausar, and Duren right now any stars. They have just competent veterans, really. That's really what it is. And some two-way guys that they found, and some minimum salary guys they signed right before the training camp, and that's been enough to lead them to the first seed in the Eastern Conference. So while it is a lot of money that you'll be committing to them, I have now found peace in that. I am cool with that. And the reason being is that you can't let any of these guys go. They're all three of them are way too important to what you're doing. That's one. You can't let them go after how they've rebuilt this and gotten them to where they are. That's one. And two, this is what you have to do. When you have a 3-man core or 2-man core, whatever it is, when you get these players from drafting them, this is now the hell, I guess, for lack of a better word, you keep. This is where you end up at. This is the paying, the salary cap hell that all the great teams end up finding themselves in. Guess what? All of the great teams are up against the cap. All the great teams are almost in the second apron. All the great teams have to find wins on the margins. You want to know why? Because all the great teams have to pay their best players and put all their resources really into their best players. That's what happens, and the Pistons have found that now in these 3 guys. So I don't think an All-NBA nod would be a bad thing for Duren. I think it's great for him. I'm happy for him. The Pistons will have to pay him a lot more money than maybe we were expecting. That's tough. But it's a good problem to have, and it's what great teams have to deal with. You pay your good players, and then it's really on your GM to build out the roster around them, and Trajan Langdon showed us that we should trust that he can do that. So I don't think it would be a bad thing. Let me know. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Khahil. Do you guys agree, disagree with me with this? But coming up, we'll talk about, is there anything the Pistons can even get out of the final week of this regular season? We'll break it down coming up. The NBA playoffs are here, where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. You can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. It just makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. And during the playoffs, that extra insight really matters when you're looking at stars, role players, and key moments. Head to FanDuel.com to get started today. FanDuel, play your game. Again, head to FanDuel.com, and if it's your first time, you can get $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Again, at FanDuel.com. Then I've got to tell you guys about another one of our sponsors. This one is TurboTax. It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth, wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve. Well, you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to TurboTax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment today with TurboTax. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. We are just over 100 subscribers away from 13,000 subscribers. So if you guys are watching this or you're listening to this and you haven't hit that subscribe button, please do it. It's one of the best ways to support the podcast. Also, make sure you guys are checking out the Locked On Pistons Squad show that we recorded today with Lindsey Hunter at Tuesday and Thursdays at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You guys can tune in live over on the Locked On Pistons YouTube channel, ask Lindsey questions live, and we will answer them throughout the podcast. I've really enjoyed recording with Lindsey. I think it's been a lot of fun. So make sure you guys check that out if you haven't already. And also check out the Everydayer Club link down below if you want to get Locked On Pistons Discord server access. And also you want ad-free listens of Locked On Pistons. Check out the Everydayer Club down below. But let's now talk about the Pistons' final week of the season. They just got done playing against the Orlando Magic yesterday, where it was clear to me, so clear, that I stopped watching and started recording the podcast midway through the game because it was clear the Pistons, didn't have it this game. Orlando wanted it way more. The Pistons have secured the 1 seed. There's nothing much for them to play for. They weren't playing as hard. Not saying they weren't trying, but you could clearly tell that they weren't 100% into it. Now, they ended up trying to turn it up at the end of the game and making a comeback, but you already saw it against Orlando. They now have 3 games left in the regular season. And one more time, like I said, they have the 1 seed wrapped up. They could go 0-3 in these games, and it would not matter at all. They would still have home court throughout the Eastern Conference. There is no way for them to catch up to, the only other thing that you could look at, like standings-wise, is if they wanted to have home court throughout the entire playoffs. So like if they got to the NBA Finals, they would have home court over OKC or San Antonio. But there's no way they can catch either of them. Even if they go 3-0, they won't be able to catch the Spurs. So there's really nothing for them to play for at this point. There's not much for them to really be, trying hard for, to be honest. And that's tough when you find yourself in these kind of positions. Lindsey Hunter mentioned earlier when I brought this up to him on the squad show, and he was like, from my perspective, when it was like this, we would rest some of the guys. Like Grant Hill missed a few of the last games, and I was out there just chucking. I was like, oh, Grant's out. Okay, I'm gonna just go out there and chuck. I want to score 30. So maybe some guys take it as an opportunity for them to go off and just go crazy. But is there anything that they could try to get out of these final games? Is there anything fans could try to get out of these final 3 games? And there are a few things. I've squinted my eyes. I've really looked deep at the fine print. I've tried to find everything possible. And I have found a few things that they're looking very hard that they could try to get out of the final 3 games of the year, despite it really not mattering for them. First thing, Cade Cunningham was just upgraded to questionable a few hours ago. Now, whether he actually plays, don't know. But he's now went from out indefinitely to doubtful to questionable. That now has me feeling that he probably is going to play at least 1 regular season game before the playoffs. I don't think they would be raising him like that game by game if they weren't trying to get him at least 1 game in the regular season. So that would be at the very top of the list, is if Cade comes back, allow him to get some of the rust off, let him play 20-plus minutes, let him try to get his legs back under him, see how he looks. Does he look good getting into the playoffs? Does it feel like one of the games he plays, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, whatever, does it look like that he's heading into the playoffs, knocking off the rust? Does he look good? Or does it look clear that, like, yeah, thank God he got these games out because he really needed to knock the rust off? I think that's number one what they could get out of this. If they can get Cade back on the court, make sure that they use the regular season to knock off some of this rust instead of the playoffs. Now, I said in the last podcast that I don't think that even if Cade had to knock off some rust, if they ended up playing 76ers or Miami or who was the other, Orlando or Toronto, whoever it is, I don't think they would need, even if Cade wasn't 100% All-NBA Cade, I think they would still beat those teams. Now, Charlotte is the only one that I'm not sure. Charlotte, I think, is very good. But I said that in the last podcast, that doesn't mean that if you were able to get him some time before the playoffs, that it couldn't be a good thing. So that's number one on the list. If Cade's able to play, helps him knock off some rust. Number 2, depending on how much this matters to them, I know it matters to a lot of fans. 60 games is still alive. If they win the final 3 games of the season, they will get their first 60-win season in 20 years. I think actually 20 or 21 years. That's a big deal. And I've spoken about it a lot on the podcast that these wins along the way to getting to eventual championship matter. They absolutely matter. They're checkpoints. They're points of celebration. They're points of feeling good about yourself. They're points of things that, it's moments of things that matter. Getting to 60 wins, being the first team to get 60 wins for the Detroit Pistons in 20 years, that's a big deal. That's something that sticks with you. That's something that you are like, man, we did that. So depending on how much they care about that, they could get to 60 wins and use that as a motivating factor to be like, hey, season's not over. We want 60 wins. Let's go out there and win these 3 games. Let's handle our business, and let's go out there and dominate. And that could result in us seeing 3 more games of regular season basketball. That's truly fun to watch. That's another thing they could take from this. I think the most, though, without factoring Cade potentially coming back healthy, I think the one thing that would be the most impactful for them, potentially, that they could use these final 3 games for, is, and I know it wouldn't be a ton of sample size, but you just use these 3 games to try things that you haven't tried yet. Maybe it's a lineup. Maybe it's a pairing that you're like, okay, we might have to play this pairing in the playoffs, or we might think about playing this pairing in the playoffs. How does it look? Let's try it here. These games, we got the 1 seed locked up. Doesn't matter. Let's try this pairing here. Let's try this lineup here. Let's give this guy this role for these few games. How does he look? Let's put the ball in this guy's hand. How does he look? Let's, just try different things with these 3 games. Doesn't matter if it results in a win or loss, but just gives you more data. So when you get to a playoff series and you get to game 5 or a game 6, and you're like, okay, this is where you really start seeing adjustments from both teams. This is where you really start to see counters from both teams. You have this data in your back pocket like, hey, this might work. We used this in game 80 and 81, and it looked really good. This might work here this might be the adjustment we need to make, or we made this adjustment in game 82, and it looked really good. We're saving it, but I think that might work here in this situation. Like, if you can create those data points and get that for yourself, I think that's by far, again, outside of assuming Cade all of a sudden comes back healthy and is able to play, I think that's by far probably the most beneficial thing they could use these final 3 games for, is to continue to find data points for the playoffs. So outside of that, though, I don't know how good of quality these final 3 games are going to be. 2 of them are against tankers, so that we already knew that those games weren't going to be great. One of them is against Charlotte, but I'm interested to see, because Detroit has been resting some players every now and then the last 2 weeks, really. Do they play everybody against Charlotte? Do they rest some guys? Do they start resting guys against Milwaukee? Do they just take the position of, let's just get to the playoffs healthy? That's all that matters. We just want our guys healthy. And do they start sitting guys? Do they sit guys against Milwaukee, Charlotte, Indiana? Like, who knows what they end up doing? It's a very, I think, high likelihood that these final 3 games could end up just being not just boring to watch, but just like, who cares? They lost. They're not, okay, who cares? I think that's very much on the board. But if they want to take the route of trying to make these games matter and try to get something out of them, I think gathering data points, trying things you haven't tried yet, potentially getting Cade to knock off some rust if he is cleared to play, and trying to push for 60 wins. Those are the only 3 things I can come up with that maybe would make these final 3 games interesting to watch still. But let me know, comment section down below or over on Twitter at Khahil. Do you guys agree, disagree, or is there something else they could do in the final 3 games that I think that you guys think would be worth it, worth watching, make it interesting, whatever? Let me know, comment section down below or over on Twitter at Khahil. Coming up, the Pistons did make some transactions, and you usually don't see that at the beginning of April for playoff teams, but they did. We'll talk about why they made these transactions coming up. Spring is a natural reset point. If there's one thing that can quietly cost businesses money, it's messy communication, missed calls, scattered texts, no clear thread of who said what. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2 with over 3,000 reviews, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses. It lets your entire team share one business number, so you never miss a call, text, or opportunity. Everything lives on one clean thread. Calls, texts, and voicemails. The whole team sees the conversation so nothing falls through the cracks. And the AI summaries save serious time by logging calls and highlighting the next steps automatically. It just makes your business feel more organized and responsive. Make this the season no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/LockedOnNBA. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNBA. Quo, no missed customers, no missed calls with Quo. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Before we get into this transaction that the Pistons made, because it's not the biggest deal. I thought it was interesting. It's interesting to see them do this so late in the season. And there is a reason behind it. There's a basketball reason behind it. And we'll discuss it. But I have found myself doing this a lot this past week. And some people may find this, there's some listeners I think may find this a little, okay, man, we heard you, like we get it, blah, blah. I think there's also some listeners that are like, thank you for continuing to point it out. So I do want to take some time just to point this out again, that I found a moment today, me and my wife were talking, and it's crazy that the Pistons are the 1 seed, man. Like, the Pistons are for real the 1 seed 2 years after having the worst season in NBA history. It does not feel that long ago. Like, it does not feel like it was 2 years ago that we had the whole Monty Williams experience. Like, it's just crazy. And I feel like each day we get closer to the playoffs, I continually find myself saying, like, man, the Pistons really are the 1 seed. They're not the 3 seed, not a really good team, not a great team. They are the best team in the East right now. Like, they were able to hold off the Celtics with Cade going down. Like, they have a 3-man core that if you tell me they have to commit 80% of their cap to, I'm sitting here saying, that's what comes with when you have a contending core. You got to pay them. That's how it works. And that's where we're at. So I find myself just sitting back being very, very shocked, appreciative, enjoying where the Pistons are at right now. And again, just shocked that they've gotten here so fast. But let's go ahead and talk about the transaction news. It's not the biggest news in the world, but I think some of you guys probably would care about this. Because I know this player had it wasn't a large fan base, but had a very few out there that believed in him. Bobi Klintman has been released by the Pistons, as they have now signed Tolu Smith to a roster spot, and they did not have any roster spots, so they decided to get rid of sounds a little too cruel, waive Bobi Klintman to make that space for Tolu Smith. So why would they do this? Well, the main reason is that they would rather have center depth than the depth at whatever position you consider Bobi, whether it's a 3 or 4. They want Tolu in case maybe Stu goes down, and then it's Paul Reed and Duren, and one of them go down, or one of them gets into foul trouble, and you have to have a big. They wanted to have that potential option if guys are hurt, if guys get into foul trouble, because Stu has yet to return. It sounds like he was also upgraded to questionable, by the way, so he should be back, but we know Stu has been hurt on and off throughout his career. Guys are getting into foul trouble, so I get why they did it in that regard. Secondly, some of you guys may be asking, well, what about Bobi? Why would they waive Bobi? Well, the problem is that Bobi just never really developed. The unfortunate truth of these kind of situations, which I think a lot of fans struggle, some maybe not a lot, but a good section of fans struggle to come to grips with, is that it feels like almost 80, at least 80, and I might be being kind by saying 80. 80% of your second-round picks that you draft are going to end up being waived. 80% of your second-round picks that you end up drafting are not going to be NBA players. And I know there's a lot of people who liked Bobi, especially coming out of the Summer League, because of his passing, some of the shooting that he showed us, the off-ball playmaking, his IQ, felt like he was very smart for the game. And I believe a few years ago, before he was drafted, like 2 years prior, he was considered like a first-round draft pick, a first-round talent. And there are some that were like, okay, well, he fell to the second round. You might be getting a first-round talent. He has some skills, blah, blah. Let's see what can happen. And most of the time, that's just how it goes. It doesn't work out. Bobi just never – he has – to talk about why it didn't work out for Bobi, I think – and I don't know if he's going to get another NBA chance. If he does, great for him. But, one, his shooting never translated, and he was an inconsistent shooter already, but had potential as one. He never really developed and became like a marksman for what he would have had to be in the NBA. You have to be consistent, knock down three-point shooter, be this guy that attacks closeouts and then makes the right read, stuff like that, a pick-and-pop guy. And he just was never consistently good enough from beyond the arc as a three-point shooter. That's one. Two, his limited athleticism really popped every time we saw him in any kind of NBA minutes. Struggled to beat guys off the dribble, got bumped off his spot a ton, couldn't really get off the ground a lot, even on putbacks or drives at the basket. When he gets there, struggled to get off the ground. I think his athleticism also really hurt him on the defensive end of the floor as well. I think when you're dealing with those kind of athletic deficiencies, that's why you fall to the second round. And then you have to be elite at something. You have to be an elite shooter, and he just wasn't that. So I wish Bobi the best, but I kind of saw this coming. He hasn't been impressive in really any of the minutes that you saw him in NBA action. It's been a struggle for him. And if the Pistons feel like they would rather have depth at the center position, and there was really going to be no situation where no matter how much foul trouble, no matter how many injuries, that Bobi was going to be someone that sees the floor. Whereas Tolu Smith could see the floor if guys get into foul trouble or someone gets hurt, and they've liked what they've seen. Tolu is 100%. He has some struggles. I don't think his finishing around the rim is but Tolu has been 100% better than Bobi was, and looks much more like an NBA player and end of bench NBA player than Bobi did. So for one side, it's really good news. Happy for Tolu that he got an NBA contract. For another side, hate to see it for Bobi. I wish him the best. Hopefully he can, maybe he can latch on somewhere, develop, and end up getting himself, an NBA career. But he hadn't developed with the Pistons. He hadn't looked very good in his NBA minutes. It was kind of, everyone already knew this, I feel like, around the team. He wasn't that impressive in the G League either. I understood why they do it. I saw it coming for a minute. I didn't think it would happen before the end of the season. But I didn't foresee Bobi lasting past this offseason anyway. So we'll see if Tolu actually does end up getting playoff minutes. Hopefully he doesn't. Not because I think Tolu's bad, but the only reason why he would get minutes is if Stu, Reed, Duren, etc. got hurt or had foul trouble. So hopefully we don't see him. But I'm happy for Tolu that he got an NBA contract. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there, and peace out, everybody.